Unbelievable.
That is unbelievable. You saw Mike McCoy there, now with the Jaguar staff, former Charger head coach. Talking to Justin Herbert. Patterson boots them into the divisional round.
And that was some noise figures from last year's AFC wildcard game between the Chargers and the Jaguars. Again, the Chargers had a 27-0 lead late in the game. Jacksonville just stormed back and they won on a last-second field goal that sent the Jags to Kansas City, which unfortunately they lost the next week. But that was a very disappointing end to the Chargers' 2022 season. Many figured and many rumored that Brandon Staley was going to be fired because of the way he handled the team this season. Many he had some starters play in the regular season's finale against the Broncos. And he took a lot of criticism for it because he was playing guys that, in a meaningless game where your playoff spot is locked up. You're just trying to finish the season, but I mean, when you have your starters playing in the meaningless game, I mean, you got to wonder if you know what you're doing. And that game had consequences because you lose your star receivers. You lose your star tight end and you lost a receiver. And Justin Herbert was just getting a beating in that last game. And for you to just, not take your guys out, I mean, come on. Why are you playing your starters in the meaningless game? Your playoff spot is locked. You know who you're playing. Let alone, this was the same Jaguar team that already beaten you once. When they went out 27-0, I was like, oh man, this might be a blowout. Or this might just be the end of it. Stephen A. Smith, people know him as a basketball analyst. And he's a analyst for ESPN. He's a co-host of the show First Take, which you can see every morning on ESPN. This is what he had to say after the Chargers game against the Jags.
The pleasantries go out the window from there. I tweeted that before they scored, before they kicked the field goal to win the game, if the Chargers lose this game, Brandon Staley should not be allowed on the plane ride home. Okay? Ladies and gentlemen, I am not playing. I mean it. That man, First Take ends by 12 noon today. We got another show that's coming on the air at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. If this man is the head coach of the Chargers, by the time I come back on the air at 2 p.m., I'm going to be ticked off. I'm sure he's got a bright future. I'm sure. But when you got Justin Herbert as your quarterback, Keenan Allen, and Mike Williams, who you got hurt because you had him in the game unnecessarily the last week of the season. We got two receivers making over $100 million. If Mike Williams is there, who knows what the outcome might have been. They might have kept pouring it on, but that didn't happen. For him to coach the way that he has, it is clear he should be fired. And
pretty harsh words there, right there. I mean, again, Brandon Staley is a Sean McVay adolescent. I mean, he did come there. I mean, a couple years ago in the COVID season, he was the coach or defensive coordinator for the Rams. He had the number one defense that year. which is why I think it was a disappointing season for the Rams that year, because they had the best defense, but not the best offense. Because Cooper Kupp was out with COVID-19. Most of the Rams starters were out. So they had to play with what they had. It just wasn't enough. But I do see his point here. Let's take a look at the season stats here. Herbert threw for almost 4,800 yards, 25 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Williams, who was hurt in that regular season game that I mentioned earlier, 63 catches, 895 yards, 4 touchdowns. Keenan Allen, 66 receptions, 752, 4 touchdowns. Palmer, 72 catches, 769, 3 touchdowns. These guys were close to having 1,000-yard seasons. Williams got hurt in that Denver game. Again, I agree with Stephen A. Why are you having your starters in a meaningless game? It's like the controversy in '99 with the Bills, who was a better quarterback, Doug Flutie or Rob Johnson. Guess what? And Doug Flutie's mentioned this before. Rob Johnson played in the meaningless game because their playoff spot was locked up. But then again, there was a controversy at that time because of the money they paid Rob Johnson. He hasn't shown his status as a quarterback yet. Guess what? He started the playoff game. Guess what? They lost. They had a chance. It wasn't that he laid an egg. That team was strong, but it wasn't because of Rob Johnson. Even Wade Phillips said, and he said this in his documentary, quote, if Doug Flutie had started that playoff game, we would have won it. Simple as that. I don't even have to rephrase it. I don't even have to explain it. I don't have to break it down. That's fact. Flutie would have won that game. Now we talk about the Chargers here. If Williams played that game, they still would have been able to pour it on still. Let's look at things here. They put up 27 in the first half. You only put up 3 points in the second half. But yet you let Jaguars go on a 31-3 run. I want everybody watching the show or listening to the show to just pause and just look at that. Look at what's being said right now. $27 points in the second half. The first half. 3 points in the second half. 0 points. But then they get 31 after that. And you see these receivers with the seasons they had. I mean, the Chargers had a lot of weapons here. I'm not going to lie. They had a lot of weapons here. I saw their game against the Rams. I saw how they played. It was just painful to see that. It was just painful to see. I mean, it's been a few months, but I'm still lost of words here. I still can't believe it. 27-0. 31-30. I mean, look, this ain't the first time this happened before. This ain't the first time we've had big collapses in games, even playoff games. Let me give you some examples here. So let's go back to 92, the AFC wildcard game, the Bills and the then Houston Oilers. Remember Frank Wright made that big comeback and the Bills won in overtime. Let's go back to the 98 AFC title game. The Broncos were down 10 points. They beat the Jets 23-10. They won 23 straight. Unanswered. And the reason being is because even Mike Shanahan said this before. They were focused on the NFC title game with the Falcons and the Vikings. They were already projecting their Super Bowl opponents, which is like really funny to me. But this team was so good in 98. The Broncos had a stellar team, quarterback, running back, defense. They were more worried about the Vikings than the Falcons. But yet they forgot about the Jets. Let's go to the miracle game in 2000, the Jets and the Dolphins, 30-7 in the fourth quarter, the big comeback in the fourth, and they won in overtime. The 2002 wild card game of the 49ers and Giants, it was 35-3 and ended up being 38-35. So we've seen a lot of these. And then we remember and then that same weekend before was the Browns and the Steelers. The Browns went up big, but the Steelers came back. Yes, hi too. Thank you. I'm still lost of words, and I'm going to keep saying it. Even though it's been 5 months since the playoffs, I still can't believe that. Now, should Brandon Staley have been fired? I probably would have to go on the limb and say yes, because the way he's coached that season, it was very tough. They had a lot of bad games, and he wasn't really thinking well. So let's go back this season. They had a game against the Jaguars. They were being beat up badly that game. It was at SoFi, and it was just bad. And this was in week 3. At the end of the half, it was 16-7. Okay, it's a good game. Then Jacksonville put up 15 in the third. They scored one more in the fourth. Chargers was only able to get 10 points out of that game. Final score was 38-10. What was really disturbing for me was that Justin Herbert was still in that game. It was the fourth quarter. The game was already decided. As the great Chick Hearn would say, it's in the refrigerator and the Jell-O's jiggling. And I still, to this day, I don't understand why you still had your star guy in there. Sean McVay did the same thing against the 49ers. They were down big, and, Cooper Kupp ended up getting hurt. That pretty much damned him the season. In this case, Justin Herbert was getting hits. Excuse me. He was getting hit after hit after hit. You knew the game was over. You're down 28. Your offense wasn't doing well. Just put your reserves in and, keep your starters from getting hurt. Now, he's very lucky that he didn't get hurt. He was hurt, but wasn't that bad. He got hurt, and it probably kind of like damned him to the point where he was playing banged up. Now, let's kind of go make-believe here. If he had gotten hurt and the team didn't make the playoffs, for sure, for most, definitely sure, Brandon Staley would have been fired. Because he miscoached and I'm not saying he mistreated his players. He put them in a spot where injuries could have been worse. Yes, you lose Williams in the last game of the season. But let's go back to week 3. Had he lost Herbert that day, we don't know what the record would have been. Chase Daniels, he hasn't played that much. You can't even put it in his hands. We're going to go ahead and take a timeout here. When we come back, we'll continue to discuss the Chargers. We'll talk about their key matchups in the season. And we'll see about what can they do to And can they take over Kansas City in the AFC West? You're on the air with Sports Talk with Ed. Back after this.